Hello and welcome to the news show filled with gumption. What if it all goes right? I am your host, Lena Norms, and I'm here to tell you about some pretty freaking cool stuff humans have been doing on the earth recently. We're not in denial here that bad things are happening, but safe to say you already have quite a few sources for that, no? And what worries me is that our natural negative bias means that we start ignoring the things that people are actually kicking ass at and doing really, really well. So grab a tea, preferably in a cozy musical themed mug, and let me beat the hope into you consensually. Edinburgh is becoming the first European city to stop buying meat for their schools, their hospitals, and their nursing homes. Now, don't panic, because it does look like from their website that if somebody does have a legit, very, very rare medical requirement for meat, they can work around that. That's what it seems like from their website. So I've heard a lot of people on the radio freaking out, but they say, and I quote, "The science is clear, meat and dairy consumption must reduce to achieve climate targets." So without being morally prescriptive, Edinburgh Council as a body are making a decision to move away from meat. The even better news, and something that I don't think has been featured in some of the articles that I've seen about this, is that it's part of a wider scheme that really seems to be working. The plant-based treaty has 20 cities already doing it. Los Angeles is one of them, and India's whooping our ass because 15 of the 20 are in India. So for those who say it won't work, it's really helpful to be like, they're already doing it. And while Edinburgh is the first city in Europe, I'm very excited for it to not be the last. I think it also poses an interesting discussion around this misunderstanding around being more plant-based in what we all eat, being about preference and autonomy over science-based necessity. Interesting. If you feel a bit blurry and confused about the vegan issue, I do actually have some videos on it up here. But it remains to say that I was a massive vegan skeptic until I'd say the past 2-3 years. And from what I have researched and what I've read, I was very, very surprised. Coal is on the out. The Energy Agency reported that by 2025, 90% of all of our global electricity is set to come from renewables. That was my excited squeak of survival. Are we going to get to live? Things do genuinely seem to be shifting at a pace, maybe not the fastest pace, not my favourite pace, but a pace in the energy space. And it's really exciting that it might actually overtake coal in the very foreseeable future. Red squirrels are on the rise, my ginger kings. Now, if you're not from the UK and you haven't been following this pseudo Game of Thrones battle of the ages between the red and the grey squirrels, I very much recommend looking into it. But safe to say, I didn't see a red squirrel until I was about 6 and I went to Scotland, and I was so excited I can't even describe. But latest surveys suggest that our numbers are tripling in Scotland because of like 15 years of conservationists working for that. So if you work in squirrels, you have my utmost respect. Thank you for your service. The 4-day work week is on the rise in a very evidence-based way. We saw in December a rise in lots of articles from global studies of how the 4-day work week is proving to be more effective. But the results of the latest trial in the UK specifically have been making headlines, and I'm excited about it. The results showed that in a huge majority of the companies, productivity and profit only stayed the same or went up in some cases by 1.4. To qualify for the study, you weren't allowed to pay your workers less. You had to pay them the same work for 5 days as you would for 4. And not only did they report a higher level of productivity, but also better happiness, better mental health rates, less sick days. We love to see it. Jeremy Corbyn is an incredibly classy man for holding back the words, "I told you so." But I'm nevertheless very excited that this might be something on the horizon for everybody, and also what we're going to do with all that time. I mean, probably just do our chores and try and get 8 hours sleep, try and slow down a bit, but also might we have some energy left over to work out how the parliamentary system works, maybe a little bit of revolution, maybe a little bit of time to stir up some shit and bring about some change? No? Maybe? I think we can earmark a little bit of that time to revolt. I don't know, maybe. Next up, is fast fashion gonna die? Not soon, but I've seen 2 examples of very interesting things happening in the higher end fast fashion, historically exploitative markets. For example, John Lewis, who, like it or lump it, have a huge amount of retail power in the UK, have done what I never thought they would do and launched a rental service in order to reduce consumption. What? At the same time, Selfridges have launched a reselling platform called, wait for it, Resellfridges. Could we have workshopped that name, guys? Just a little bit of workshopping? No? Okay. Encouraging customers to sell on their Selfridge bought garments. And it's part of a wider commitment. We love a commitment, but we love a delivery more. But it is a commitment to make 45% of their transactions circular by 2030. While these are aimed at people who have slightly more money, I would say in the retail space and on the high street, there are showing up really twatty brands like H&M who are just very embarrassing when it comes to their response to the climate. So I think that's going to be an interesting conversation within the industry. And also you're making those items more affordable for people who earn a little bit less money than them. And I would argue that actually the people that we should be targeting are the people that are shopping at John Lewis and Selfridges, because the more affluent you are, the more likely you are to over consume. Now in the UK, we've been seeing a lot of scary stuff around protest and law, so I wanted to highlight this slightly hopeful story. Just Stop Oil activists who were trying to stop Esso and their oil terminal were in the West Midlands, represent where I'm from, were being trialled in Birmingham near me, and while they were still found guilty, the judge said publicly that they had nothing to be guilty about and just gave them some fines. He said, and I quote, "It is abundantly clear that you're all good people, intelligent and articulate, and you have been a pleasure throughout to deal with. It is unarguable that man-made global warming is real and that we are facing a climate crisis. That is acceptable and recognisable by the scientific community and most governments, including our own. Being validated in a court setting like that is very encouraging for me, and it makes me think about the conversations that are happening behind the scenes within the law industry, because it is an industry. It's a service, but it's also a freaking industry. Because the more we talk about this together, the more those conversations are going to reach people in power, like judges." Interesting. Next, are Lidl going to save us? Probably not, but their chief buyer, Christopher Graff, said there was no alternative and that they would be significantly reducing their meat products in shops over the next few years because, and he says, and we all know it, there is no planet B. So to have somebody that high up in Lidl who's clearly on side, very, very interesting. They're apparently going to be assessing and reducing from now until 2025, and then they're making a commitment to continuously increase the percentage of plant-based products on their shelves into the future, apparently. They didn't say when they were going to stop. It is obviously up to us as consumers to hold them to that, and I'd store that in your little memory chamber and get on the customer service emails if you don't see that happening in your Lidl. But they've said it now. They can't take it back. I won't let them. Next, NatWest. Why are they in a good news segment? It's hard to say. Historical dickheads, NatWest, have announced that they are going to refuse to renew, refinance or extend loans for gas and oil companies from 2026, which is very, very soon if they were going to ask me, which they didn't. They are, of course, still knob cheeses, but they're also a massive voice in the banking space, and I would imagine that once NatWest do start doing stuff like that, they will start showing up the other shoddy banks, and there will be other conversations around this kind of funding. So I'd also still like to highlight, if you can avoid it, don't bank for NatWest. I'd say it's like a moral minimum for banks, not something they need to be applauded for, but I am excited because of the low bar in the space that it's a sign that things are shifting. Thank you for watching What If It All Goes Right. Now, I have no idea how the algorithm's going to like that, but it doesn't really matter because this video exists because of the Gumption Club. They tip me per video to make sure these videos keep happening, and you'll notice there was no sponsor on this video. If you enjoyed that, you can thank them in the comments below. Feel free to tell me if these news stories made you hopeful or other ones you found around that make you feel like the world isn't completely crumbling. I would love to hear them. You have no idea. If you liked this video, you might like these videos. Who can say? I'm not you, you're you. See you soon. Frog Snug out.